Today's Faceoff on Fox Soul. Challengers Quan LX and Big Angry Adams. Ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Faceoff on Fox Soul starts right now. Up first, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell blasts former President Barack Obama in the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. Up first, here's Quan LX.
Charles, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has condemned our former President Barack Obama because he spoke about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict on a podcast show. And when he said these words, that nobody's hands is clean, Israel's hands in this conflict is not clean. Hamas's hands, Palestinian hands, are not clean. When he put it all in context, the historical conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, nobody's hands on either side is totally clean. That's a fact. But what Mitch McConnell is doing is what many politicians in America are trying to do. Silence any voice that has any degree of an inch of criticism in how Israel is prosecuting this war. Charles, it doesn't make you an anti-Semite if you criticize how Israel is prosecuting this war. Israel has a right to exist. Israel has a right to defend itself from terrorist attacks and missiles being shot at its citizens. But Israel also must be held to the same standards by the United Nations and the World Court, and also all of those who are involved with trying to bring peace over the years to the Palestinian-Israeli issue. But Mitch McConnell was wrong. Barack Obama was right. Nobody's hands is clean here.
So the United Nations, that in 2022 censured Israel a couple of dozen times. Syria once, Iran once, China none, right? You're saying that they're pro-Israel?
I didn't say that.
The same United Nations.
I didn't say
that the Secretary General said we got to contextualize children being butchered. Now, you left off two things about this story. You left off the second part of Obama's statement that McConnell, I'm no McConnell fan, that turtily looking senator from Kentucky is absolutely responsible for the theocratic shift of the Republicans and the fact that they don't reach out to people of color. I mean, he has led this party into the dirt, right? We just saw the local elections last week, the statewide elections last week, that despite this horrible economy, despite all the horrible things that Biden is doing, we saw a resurgence of Democrats and victories where they were not expected. And I say it's because people like McConnell are so out of touch with the American people. And he puts theocracy in front of individual
That's more about the abortion issue.
Okay, clearly. And I'm no fan of that guy, right? I also think he is that swamp grubbing, making money at the American taxpayer expense. Not a fan. But what he said was he took issue with Obama saying that all of us are complicit to some degree. Do you think the baby that was put in an oven by the Hamas terrorists is complicit?
He wasn't talking about them.
No, he
said all of us. That means all of America's politicians, all of America's elected officials who have not done enough to help establish and bring peace to that region. He said all of us are complicit because did we do enough? And he went on to say, I asked myself the question, Obama speaking, did I do enough? Could I have done more? And if you have not done enough and you could have did more, then yes, you are complicit as the elected official.
There's no doubt that Obama leaned into the war, and I'm a fan, right? But he leaned into the warmongering, right? He preached hope, he was elected on hope, and really didn't accomplish much in 8 years. Right, especially not on foreign policy where we're still spending trillions on fighting wars that we have no business being involved in. But at the end of the day, you also left off the whole half of this story that we're supposed to be talking about squad member Rashida Tlaib also being criticized by McConnell. Now, she was also last week censured by her own house, the Congress, and what she was censured over was her refusal to back off her river to the sea proclamations, right? Which of course is calling for the complete eradication of the state of Israel and the removal of Jews. But how about the leadership in Hamas, from the billionaire leader of Hamas and his multimillionaire henchmen who live in Qatar in a penthouse, luxury high-rises. And they were interviewed last week and they admitted, we don't care about the Palestinian people. We want constant war until Israel is eradicated.
So why is Israel murdering not Hamas leadership, murdering Hamas soldiers. They're all hiding in tunnels underground. You've lost almost 10,000 citizens in Palestine from this bombing. Charles, and 51% of the population are children from 13 and younger.
I do not support Netanyahu's bombing campaign. I absolutely agree with that, right? They should be sending ground troops in more, which they are, and going after these disgusting pigs and killing them, the ones responsible, the terrorists, right? Not the good citizens. But the truth is, the moment Gaza relaxes their embrace on terror, the moment Muslims in the Middle East, right, the Islamists, accept Israel's existence, all the violence stops.
So until they accept Israel's existence, and Israel has a right to exist because God is allowing Israel to exist.
Okay.
God allowed Israel to come into fruition. So any Muslim should understand that if Allah God did not want Israel to come into fruition, it never would happen. If Allah God did not want Israel to exist, it wouldn't be there. It exists by God's permission.
I know, Quanell.
But don't tell me that the Islamic nations have to accept it or the bombing continues.
Well, no,
Kids are dying.
Hold on.
Children
That's
are dying.
not what I said.
Babies are dying.
I said those committing the violence, right? I get that in your interpretation of your faith, it is a religion of peace. I believe you're completely sincere about that, and it's a beautiful religion, right? I am not criticizing your form. In fact, most of the violence committed by Islamists is committed against other Muslims who don't belong to the sect that they agree with, right? But the violence directed, the suicide bombings that were the predicate to the blockade, the security measures that were employed as a result of terror, all of them, the predicate is terror. 7 times that Israel accepted a two-state solution, even before, in 1937, before the formation of Israel by about 11 years. It has been rejected by the Islamists, who then said, no, there'll be, what is it, the 3 no's in 1968, that they will not accept any compromise, and they just want to kill. The truth is that the leadership of Hamas, that's how they make their money. They take the humanitarian aid and they take it all for themselves.
You know,
they take
Charles,
the humanitarian aid,
right here in America,
the moment they stop,
right
the violence
here in America,
stops.
Charles,
it's not the Israelis.
The reality
it's not the
of
Jews.
America's history is synonymous to what's happening in Israel and Palestine. Geronimo was classified as a terrorist. Chief Sitting Bull was classified as a terrorist. Crazy Horse was a terrorist. Why? Because they stood up to fight for their land that was stolen from them. And it was the thieves that labeled them as terrorists.
So if someone bought land, like the Israelis
bought
did
what land?
In the 40s.
American white folks said the same thing about they bought land. They didn't buy it. They took it, stole it, killed, and murdered for it.
Actually, they bought it from Arabic landowners who then kicked tenants off.
Oh, my God, man,
What you want to do is you're an anti-Semite.
No, I'm not an anti-Semite because I criticize black people, too. Am I anti-black?
Do you accept Israel's existence?
Absolutely, I do. And she has a right to exist.
Up next, the racist birds with new names. Up next.
TGIF.
Jason Derulo is speaking out against sexual harassment claims.
I sit here before you deeply offended.
Live and interactive.
I agree with Miss Hollywood in the chat. She says he's reading a teleprompter.
Listen, I know bad acting when I see it because I've done it. I'm deeply offended.
I'm going to give you an Angela Bassett deeply offended. And I'm deeply offended.
Oh.
Come on, Oscar.
And I'm deeply offended.
Guilty.
On Fox Soul.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanting to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Bird is the word. But now the bird's name will change to something a little less insensitive. But is the name change a little cuckoo? Here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
You know, when I saw this headline, Quanell, I thought, well, what horrible names had been assigned to birds that I had just missed, right? A couple of years ago, they renamed the Jewfish as the Goliath grouper. And I don't think the word Jew, I think most people don't see that as a slur, but it does apparently mention religion, and I don't know the basis for it, so they renamed it, right? So I thought, well, man, what horrible thing have these ornithological experts found? And the one that I saw was the Bachman sparrow. How is that racist? Well, the Bachman sparrow apparently is named after a member of the clergy who owned slaves in South Carolina a couple hundred years ago. But the name in and of itself, which I would assume he's the one that discovered the bird, well, it doesn't sound racist. So you ask yourself why? Well, why? Because we have incentivized in America trying to call everything racist, trying to find anything that we can get some attention and say, oh, racist, 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 right? Just last weekend, after their alumni weekend, the famed Rice University here in Houston removed the statue of its founder, William Rice. Now, he had some horrible thoughts on race. He was an anti-Semite and a racist, right? But he also founded the university that has done a lot of great things. It was his money. And we've got to this point in America where we don't want to, everything needs to be viewed through the lens of presentism, right? Like, would it be appropriate in America at this moment? This Bachman sparrow. There's no one that heard Bachman sparrow and said, oh my God, that's so racist, right? It's just a name. So what you have is people looking for anything to call it racist so they can get some damn attention. It's stupid.
Charles, I believe it's the right thing to do. I think that when you identify certain things in America that wear and bear the names of those who were absolute haters, some were killers and enslavers, they should not be honored with their name on anything that we celebrate or uplift. And so the Bachman sparrow, what if it was named the Hitler sparrow?
Well, that's different.
Or the Stalin sparrow.
Well, that's
or
different.
the Bin Laden sparrow. At the end of the day, man, this man was a staunch white supremacist, and he was absolutely a Nazi in his thinking, and his name should not be on anything that we uplift or our children have to read, look at, and talk about or write about in a positive sense.
Well,
but
who's
Charles,
writing about a Bachman sparrow?
Those in school.
Okay, and who hears
those
the name?
children in school?
Who hears? I mean,
And
they
then-
had to
but-
dig
but-
deep.
but let me
They had
finish.
to dig. That's the only name they're
Charles,
changing.
But Charles, we shouldn't stop there. You talk about Rice University removing the name of its founder.
Not the name, but the statue.
I believe it was beautiful.
But if they
I
agreed,
believe it was
if part of the
beautiful.
founding
In
instrument
fact,
was that they agreed to keep it there.
My only question would be, why it take you white folks so long to remove that statue?
Okay, well,
He's
actually, I believe
undeserving
the
of
president.
that statue.
I believe the president.
Undeserving
of
of
the president Rice is African American, right?
And thank God a brother
if he
had enough
founded
sense
the
to remove it.
university, provided the money and the land, and the presence of that statue was a required part of the deal, which is my understanding. It's part of the foundational documents that statue would remain there.
And he was a Klan member.
He wasn't
and
a Klan
Nazi.
member. He had some evil
He had
ideas
all the
on
beliefs the
eugenics,
Klan have.
Right.
All the beliefs the Nazis
Well,
have.
so did Henry Ford. Do you think we should take Ford off everything?
I would have
he
no
had
problem
some
with
horrible
that.
ideas.
I would have no
Henry
problem
Ford
with
was
that.
down with Hitler.
I have no problem
Talk
with
about
that
Nazis.
because he also supported the eugenics movement in America that said black people were genetically inferior. So yes, they can remove Henry Ford too.
Volkswagen was actually Hitler's car.
Absolutely.
Right?
And we can remove that too.
BMW made plane engines, right?
Let's clean house.
Hugo Boss made the uniforms for the Nazis, right?
Let's clean house.
At some point, why are we searching to find things to call it racist instead of addressing?
So let me ask you a question.
Hold on. Instead of addressing actual racism that occurs today in America.
So let me ask you a question. That's like white children going to a school named after Malcolm X. Would white people tolerate that?
What's wrong with
Hell
that?
no, they wouldn't tolerate that.
They absolutely
That's
do.
why in America right now
you
today.
You don't think there's schools named after Malcolm X?
No, not the white school. Not one white school is named after Malcolm X.
You don't think?
In a predominantly white neighborhood? No.
That's different.
Charles,
that's different.
Do you realize that there's not a white school predominantly in America, a predominantly white neighborhood named after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.?
Okay.
So Charles, let's not pretend
Hold on.
like white people wouldn't be angry, upset, about this same thing,
in my hometown.
Oh, now here comes Bin Laden University. Stop.
Well, Bin Laden's just a monster. That'd be like Hitler.
But he wasn't no worse than George Washington.
Here's the thing. We strain to find racism. We strain academics, especially academics, right? The only way this paper gets any damn attention, if they say racism, 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 these are birds. There's real racism here. And what we're doing is we're turning cries about real racism.
So what if we called it the white
noise.
cracker sparrow? Would you like that?
Oh, I wouldn't care.
Oh, yeah, you would. Stop.
I wouldn't care.
Of course you would care.
But the thing is, it doesn't. I fully expected to see a horrifying pejorative. I fully expected when I read this article that our producer suggested that, man, there were going to be some crazy named
But they
birds.
did make mockery of Indians and Indian culture.
But none of them, I'm sure, but none of that's there. It's literally just a Bachman sparrow. Somebody had to go do research and find out that this clergyman happened to own some slaves.
But what's wrong with that?
Okay, but why are we so focused on that when we should be focused on systemic racism here in America today?
But here in America, we've taught our children for generations, including black children, his story, not history. And what we have to do, Charles, is understand and teach our children that history is written by the conquerors and never the conquered.
Well, who doesn't realize that?
The people in this nation have been misled with the facts of this nation.
Okay.
We still honor our presidents on President's Day.
Okay.
And some of these men were slave owners and raper of little black children and girls.
So,
and some of them went on hunts with alligator bait using black babies in Florida
horrible.
As alligator bait.
But yet, what president did that?
Hold on, wait.
I haven't seen that.
Thomas Jefferson went
monster.
down to Florida and was a part of an alligator hunt in Florida with the governor of Florida where they used a black baby as alligator bait.
That's absolutely horrible.
And we still celebrate them.
But,
hell, Sam Houston, we right in the city tonight in Houston, Texas. He was a slave owner. He fought to preserve slavery.
But at the end of the day, Quanell, you're looking at everything through the lens of today where we realize that what they did back then was horrible, right? But instead of trying to change, the Confederate statues are different, right? Because they were erected in the 30s to oppress people.
Sam Houston ain't no different.
But at the end of the day, why don't we look at it and look at real racism and deal with real racism instead of crying about calling everything racism?
Let's deal with it all.
Okay, but the thing is, we're not, right? We're doing performative nonsense like changing a bird's name instead of really addressing racism.
I bet it's a liberal white person did the research.
Up next, more violence at an HBCU. The message from one NAACP leader.
What a disaster.
You're a disaster.
This is a disaster.
You can't be ready for every little disaster, but you can prepare for a big one. Make an emergency plan today.
Welcome inside the black box.
So you guys ready to have some fun?
Forget the acting studio. I'm here with you guys.
Creativity will find its way. It doesn't matter what the ethnicity is.
Television and movies are the mediums of stereotypes.
Just because we all have the same color don't mean we have the same experience.
Your uniqueness is your greatness.
Welcome inside the black box.
Every Monday on Fox Soul. TGIF.
Lil Wayne was not pleased with the reveal of his wax figure. He tweeted, "Sorry, Wax Museum, but that bleep ain't me."
Live and interactive.
Brittany T said, "That ain't Lil Weezy, that's Lil Asthma."
Hold on, Carla. You gotta see what Poppy said. Hell, the wax figure looks cleaner and better than the real Lil Wayne.
Serving up all the tea.
You so messy, Q. You are.
Join the chat on Fox Soul.
I don't make the comments. I just read them, honey.
Oh, God.
What do you think the most bougie state in the United States is? Is it black bougie or white bougie? There's a difference.
McMillan and Morrow.
I'm not black bougie. I'm trying to. You just bougie. I'm just too poor.
Every Thursday.
Listen, if I had more money, I would be so bougie. You black bougie adjacent. All your friends are black bougie. Exactly.
On Fox Soul.
I'm in the same boat. I'm living vicariously through them.
In our main event, Prairie View A&M, Morgan State University, Bowie State University, Edward Waters University, Clark Atlanta University. The violent list goes on. Now, one NAACP leader says HBCUs are not getting the resources they need to help fight the violence. Here's Quanell X.
Charles, what we're witnessing in this country with mass shootings is awful, it's shameful, it hurts, and many in this country are becoming numb to it. But there's not a whole lot of conversation taking place about these mass shootings taking place at historically black universities. There have been several just in the last week. Prairie View A&M, another 2 across the country, young men being shot, young men dying. But I give credit and courage to the NAACP leader who spoke out about this and spoke about historically black universities not receiving the resources that are needed to implement the things that need to be implemented to make it a more safer environment, like hiring more police officers, et cetera. Dorm moms, you talk about having dorm moms when he was at school. But just the resources that we need to put in place to create a safer environment. But at the same time, that's everywhere in America. All schools are now crying out for additional resources to create safer environments. But he spoke about a cultural problem. And let's be honest, there is a cultural problem in the black community where most of these HBCUs are centered. Our young people have lost a moral sense of shame. So many of them have lost a moral sense of shame. They've been desensitized to violence, desensitized to murder and shootings. We now are celebrating a genre of music that is being pushed among our young people, where some of the hip hop artists who've never lived that life a day in their life, it becomes so popular in the hearts and minds of our young people who are college students about violence, shooting, killings, and gunning people down. America itself has become totally desensitized to gun violence. And resources that need to be put in place are more than just some money to hire additional police officers. We need that, but it must go much deeper than that.
Well, I mean, I don't disagree with anything that you're saying, which this is supposed to be an argument segment, but the truth is that many HBCUs embraced the narrative of abolish the police and get police off campus in the wake of the social justice protests of 2020. The truth is that when I read these comments from the NAACP leader, it sounded a bit bigoted to me, right? If it was a white man saying that, condemning black culture, it would just sound like abject racism. I think a lot of it goes to the media narratives and the failure to, the media doesn't care about black victims when they're victimized by black people, right? They love them, and the media loves the clicks of when you have a white person that kills black people, right? When you have anything that you can tie to the narrative of racism. But when it's black victims victimized by black people, we hear crickets. Nobody cares, because it's all about the almighty dollar. And when he talks about resources and culture, the truth is, I mean, you look at Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders left his HBCU because he didn't have the resources to build the team he wanted to build. We should make sure that our HBCUs, they honestly should be the best funded public schools in America, because black people are having to overcome, when you talk about reparations, that's real reparations, right? When you recognize that many black youth have overcome economic hurdles to get to college that are on an average basis that are much greater than those of white students, right? And despite all the efforts to make it different for making admissions requirements go away, testing requirements go away, and they're doing that to allow these elite schools to admit more people that typically wouldn't qualify if they checked the right boxes about their gender orientation or color. Instead, what we should be doing is we should be doing a better job teaching black students, because the myth is, black people can't make the scores, they can't keep up. And that's real racism. That's liberal white racism.
Charles,
the truth is we're not spending the right amount of money on HBCUs and young black students.
Reality of America's public school system, we can't. Our children are so far being pushed behind and pushed to the curve in America's public school system. It is a disgrace.
When you look,
it has failed the inner city children of America, both black and brown. And so when you look at the reality of suburban affluent children who go to much better schools, much safer environments. I remember this, Charles. When I was a young boy, there were several things we had to worry about going to school. One, if we found drug paraphernalia.
Safety.
That we didn't get robbed.
Right.
That we didn't get caught in crossfire.
Get jumped on the way home from school.
That we didn't talk to prostitutes. That we kept our head down and went forward. I'm going to tell you something else, Charles. Do you know that we couldn't walk with a book in our hand?
Oh, no, you'd get made fun of.
No, you wouldn't.
Oh, yeah, you would.
You would get
Where
whooped.
I grew up, you
would get whooped.
Well, yeah, I mean.
I should take my books, Charles, stick them under my shirt.
But how do we fix
because
that?
I didn't want to be targeted.
Because here's the thing: when you talk about affluent areas,
we as black folks got to fix that problem.
You actually see an achievement difference between white students and Asian students and black students in affluent neighborhoods as well. But what no one talks about is the chronic absenteeism for African American students is incredibly higher, like exponentially higher than for Asian and white students, right? And that correlates directly with test performance. And
this is a cultural issue
I think the
that
liberal,
we have to fix.
The liberal myth is, oh, black people can't do it. Black people can't compete. And that's, in my opinion, the racism of 2023.
When you look at the
because
test scores of black students.
every race is just as smart as the next one.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Why is it that the test scores of black students in America's public school systems in the 1960s
were higher than today?
Were higher than today.
Because parents gave
doing segregation.
Because LBJ
Charles,
told black
doing
America.
segregation.
Because LBJ told you also, if you look at the numbers of black America opening small businesses back then, if you look
was
at the
through
America,
the roof,
right?
Compared to right now, that was doing segregation.
Jim Crow, and Jim Crow was horribly oppressive. And what many in black America said, you know what, we're just going to start our own.
That's right.
We're going to build our own.
When we understood that there was nothing coming from the government, that we had to provide for ourselves and do it for ourselves.
What LBJ did. And I'm all for a universal basic income. I'm all for free child care. I'm all for, helping people come up. But what we're doing now is we've built a system to encourage people to wallow. And what we need to do is fund. We need to
because
fund,
there is a financial benefit for the elite rich of America by keeping a certain underclass.
Mass shootings. The widespread belief, because of media lies, is that mass shootings are largely committed by white men. But the overwhelming majority of mass shootings in America are committed by African American bad people, right? Murderers,
but for different reasons.
But what we wanted,
black folks not committing mass shootings based on racial hate.
But the racists want to use that.
They're shooting folks on the corner.
But the racists,
they're shooting them at the park, at the nightclub,
or
at the
the
bowling
college,
alley.
apparently, and no one's talking about it.
But they are not shooting folks based on race.
Okay.
Like these white boys are.
But at
these
the
mass
end of
shooters.
the day, they use it to condemn all white people. The racists use it to condemn all black people. And what we should be doing is condemning violent people. I don't care what their complexion is. We should be doing that, and we should give the same amount of attention to a murderer, whether he's got white skin or black skin.
I'm against gun control, Charles.
I am too.
But I believe we got too many guns on the street.
Well, you look at it, like in Chicago, you just got a guy get 6 years for a mass shooting that killed people. He had prior convictions for gun violence, right? Gun offenses. I mean, we've got to start treating criminals like criminals again in every community. I think the leader of the NAACP, who was criticizing the funding issue, hit the nail on the head. But another thing we actually have to focus on is why those resources aren't there. And when you talk about reparations, it says, oh, let's give everybody a check. And we know the government's not ever going to do that. And we know that this is just the Democratic Party trying to use that issue to, and we saw that happen in California, where they spent all this money on studies. It all went to consultants, but it all resulted in Newsom saying, this isn't the time. Well, real reparations would be creating more opportunities for black America, more education, better schools, better universities. We need to stop engaging in performative or racist concern, right? I think Quadell hit the nail on the head when he said it was probably white people that were talking about changing the name of birds, digging deep to get some damn attention as being woke, right? Let's worry about the real racism, the systemic disparities in the drug war, the systemic disparities in who gets pulled over, who gets searched, right? The fact that black law-abiding citizens have been abandoned to victimization by law enforcement in this country. That's real reparations.
Ladies and gentlemen, fellow American citizens, brothers and sisters, we in the black community, it is our responsibility to make our schools safe. It is our responsibility to make sure our HBCUs are properly maintained. We cannot look for the United States government, as the most honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, to look to do for us what God has given us, the wherewithal, the strength, the resources, the manpower to do for ourselves. When we were told by the United States government that there were no handouts, they had nothing for us, what did we do in the black community? We built hotels, motels, transportation companies, banks, hospitals, and HBCUs out of our own pocket. Should the government help us? Yes. But we shouldn't walk around looking for anybody to do for us what we can still do for ourselves. We have to clean up what's happening in this nation. And until both black, brown, and white in America go back to God, get back to the very principles that made this nation great, not good, but great, we're going to be in this problem for many generations to come and even worse.